Okay, back on with the action, episode 21, Fans Pulse Lap 2 coming right up. So, first of all, if you have only recently or fairly recently discovered 360 Speedway, and particularly if you enjoy our output and would like to watch more of it, then please be aware that we do have our dedicated YouTube channel. That's where we put all of our discussions. We've now got 70 plus long form video discussions on our YouTube channel. So go onto YouTube, search out 360 Speedway, and you should find the channel. Please hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. All that means is that you will receive an email notification whenever we add new content to the channel. There's no charging, there's no costs to getting those emails. And as I say, you know, we're getting towards the end of the Speedway season. If your team is now out of action, if you've now got your feet up for the winter, the long winter ahead, then why not while away a few hours on occasions by looking back and reliving or watching for the first time some of our previous discussions. Okay, Fans Pulse Lap 2. Let me press the buttons to bring on the graphic, which is, now listen, right here, right now, we don't know, officially at least, what the format, what the strategic direction of travel is for British Speedway in 2026. In the next segment, in Fans Pulse Lap 3, we will be talking about, the whole discussion will be around one league or two. We'll kick the tyres on the pros and cons of either. But right now, for this particular discussion, we wanted to talk about whether what is the optimal product of British Speedway. Is it the Premiership model or is it the Championship model? So guys, listen, you know, we anticipate and we hope that British Speedway will, internally already have been discussing and talking and beginning to form some consensus view about the strategic direction of travel for British Speedway to take us forward into the future and give the sport a chance to consolidate and grow potentially. The Premiership and the Championship are very different products in many respects. Each has some advantages, each has some weaknesses. Carol Johnson has gone on record a couple of times. Good evening, Carol. Carol has mentioned a few times that in his opinion the Championship is the more optimal product, and probably because in many respects the cost model, the operational cost model, is a bit more manageable, and in some respects we're seeing many of the same riders shared between both leagues anyway. I've done a little bit of analysis on that which I'll share later on, but first things first, Simon, you know, again, you know, I'm just going to repeat just a little bit. We don't quite know the direction of travel. We'll talk about that more fully in the next segment. But do you sense, Simon, from a riding perspective, from what you see around the circuits, do you sense that British Speedway has reached a sort of strategic crossroads, and we're going to have to carefully pick the direction to follow?
Well, yeah, because there's just not enough clubs. That's the problem. If you go one league, is there going to be too many? If you keep going as it is now, there's not enough. If they keep it as it is, they're going to have to do 2 meetings home, 2 away, because it doesn't warrant it. You know, being a rider myself, I know the costs are spent on me equipment. And, you know, obviously we get paid per point, so I think a lot of the championship racing's a lot harder. It's harder than it's ever has been. Hard but fair, obviously. Whereas obviously the top league, there is obviously, you take the top, like the number 1 out of every team and the odd number 5, and you've got the same riders. So, yeah, it would be a shame to lose a lot of the top boys because they've had all the money, really. But obviously, it's what fans want to see, innit? I guess it's just a matter of we've got to keep British Speedway going. It's which way they go. I think they'll perhaps do 2, but who knows?
Robbo, we'll kick the tyres a little bit on the Premiership model. You know, sort of headline stuff. You know, what's the difference between the Premiership and the Championship? So the two things that I always think are the key differences are Premiership has less clubs, less variety of opposition, but they do have the superstar riders. I think approximately, I can't quite lay my hands on my numbers, but I did a little bit of analysis, and there's something like 55% or thereabouts of the riders in the Premiership who also ride in the Championship. So therefore there's 40, 45, 50% of the Premiership riders you can only get to see in the Premiership. So there is some sort of exclusivity around the current Premiership model. I was going to say leaving costs aside, but we can't leave costs aside because the financial health state of British Speedway must surely mean, Stuart, that the sport needs to pay close attention to the financial side of things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the top priority at the AGMs, or one of the top priorities, because the financial costs, it can't, be sustainable with small crowds. To have some of the top riders in there, because they're not cheap. They're very expensive to bring in from wherever they're flown in from, and their points money or their guarantee or however they get paid. It's a major factor in the clubs, isn't it? And every club has to run to a budget. What that budget is set by the club at the beginning of the season, and they've got to try and stick to it, because if they don't, they will end up in dire straits, really, and big financial difficulties, and that will put them in a really bad position for the following season if they can continue to run. So the costs are a massive part of the sport, and it's a difficult one with the leagues, whether it's going to go one or two, because we tried it years and years back, mid-90s, I think it was in 96, tried one league, and it kind of worked, but it didn't last for whatever reason. I think we only did it for one season. And I was part of the Coventry team initially, and then I ended up at Middlesbrough at the time. It was actually ended up at Middlesbrough for the rest of the season after I broke my collarbone, and I had a great time. I loved it because we saw at Middlesbrough a lot of riders that they wouldn't have seen normally, and so that was a really good thing. But for the clubs to bring in top riders, they just can't afford to do, because their crowds aren't there. I mean, if the average crowd is 1,000 people, you're just not going to be able to afford to bring many top riders in at all, if any.
Lawrence, just to build on what Stuart's been saying, in the last couple of seasons in particular, it's been quite notable the number of Grand Prix riders or better standard of riders who have returned to race regularly in the UK, in the Premiership in particular. And yet it's the Premiership who, I've got no stats to back this up, but if anyone disagrees with me, then please call it out. But I think there's more prospects, and there's probably been more casualties of clubs at Premiership level due to financial stress than there have been at the Championship. Right, Championship level is a bit more stable. Yeah, the odd club will elect to go into the Premiership. The odd club might stand down from time to time, but by and large, there's always 8, 9, 10 clubs in the Championship. Premiership, has dropped, but we're now currently operating with is it 6, 7 clubs? I can't remember. 7 clubs, I think it was this season. It just feels like at the Premiership level, using the operating model that the Premiership applies, it's constantly under much more duress, much more financial stress, albeit that's the division that gets the benefit of television money, right?
Yeah, obviously you've got when the Championship is sort of, I suppose they have to operate within their means, but we've had, like you say, these recent seasons, we've had got a lot more of these Grand Prix riders come back, and it's been really, really, really exciting, to have all these guys back and everything. But is it stretching? Some clubs, are they? It's got to be some. If you're getting 2,000 people, it's one thing, or you got good sponsors behind you and that. But are some other clubs feeling they have to do the same to catch up and to compete? I mean, I'm lucky every week to go to Ipswich and watch and see Emil and Doyley every week.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be happy with that? But it's both the guys have said it all. Really, the demand higher wages and the higher costs, and the other guys are always striving and to compete with them, probably spending more and more on equipment and that sort of thing. And it can get, it can run away a little bit. But one league it's a difficult one, in it. The logistics of bringing one league together. Like Robo says, we did it in '96.
Yeah.
And it was nice to go around all these different clubs and see different clubs at your track, which is great. You'd never see. But to bring the championship up a level a bit, and then the Premiership clubs, they're going to be happy. That the fans going to be happy with having a chop some of their top guys. It's sort of it's bad for both of them, really, isn't it? It's very, very difficult one, really. And like I say, logistics wise, how do you work it all in and fixture wise? And one club has different night to another club, and one has to ride. And it's gone on Mondays for the TV, and that who gets the TV. The AGM's going to be do a lot of head scratching on that one.
Yeah, listen, there's definitely lots of challenges, whichever way they go, I think. Simon, I'm trying not to go down the rabbit hole of talking about one league or two, because we're going to talk about that as a standalone subject shortly. But, if British Speedway was to pursue a one league route, if it was to be based on Premiership, the current Premiership standard, then I think what we've said collectively, not without putting words into your mouth, is that that would appear to put a bit more financial stress on the championship clubs moving up. There would be some rider distribution challenges, as has been proven before. The one thing that we haven't touched on, of course, is it's my understanding, and I'm not 100% certain. I think the television deal is up for renewal and possibly is being renegotiated as we speak, but. That could, depending on how that lands, that could make all the difference in the world and actually assist some of the championship clubs to a more elevated status. Simon, does that make sense?
Yeah, just top of my head quickly, I've just got 21 riders that don't double down, let's say, but 5 of them chose not to. So you only really, like I say, got numbers 1 and 5 in every team. Your Bewley, Kurtz, Emil Doyley, usually Axago. Do you know what I mean?
40. I just spotted my stats. 45% of the riders in this year's Premiership don't double down, and that was a higher percentage than I thought. I didn't think it would quite be as high as that. But
you're only on 7 teams, aren't you? Not say 10. I don't know. What people don't get is, Robbo, you boys have been around and done it. What fans don't get is what your number 1 gets in the championship is probably what your reserve gets in the top league. It's financial suicide. Paul have dropped down, like we say about Paul winning everything most of the time. Matt Ford's a very, very good businessman. You've only got to look at his estate and his stables as such. He ain't stupid. He's going to get 2,000-3,000 people there every week, whichever league they're in. So why not? They sometimes say more is less, don't they? And it's very true. You hear a lot of these riders brag about the deals they get at championship level, but yet they're the ones in the Speedway Star when the club goes bust. Oh, I haven't been paid. Well, you want to go brag that you're on £120 a point or 1,500 quid guarantee and you're not getting it. 100% of what you earn is worth the world, I believe. And I've always been lucky, Scunny, every Friday, guest bookings. They're very shrewd on it. Whereas I know some riders moan that they're not paid for a month at a time, or 5 or 6, even 8 meetings. I've even heard riders this year have missed meetings because they're owed so much money, without saying names. You know what I mean? So you have to they've all got to kick the ball and use their heads. It's as simple as that. But yeah, you lose the big guys. Yeah, but we need a rising star scheme in the championship, not so much the Premiership, I believe, because Tom Brennan did very well in that, and Dan Thompson has this year, and Anders Rowe, to be fair, but and Leon Flint. They've kind of swapped places now, haven't they? So listen, it's very tough. And then, like we say, we've had Paul on tonight, and we're on about starting the kids out on these e-bikes at a younger age. We need that to bring them through, because in, maybe 3 years' time, who is there going to be coming through? Because I can't think of anyone.
Yeah. Stuart, Stuart Robson, just to stay on track of this particular discussion topic. Simon touched on some of the financial problems that happen from time to time, and the championship isn't immune from that. So yes, it's a lower operating cost, and I'm suggesting that would ease some of the stresses generally within the sport in this country. But I just want to amplify that championship clubs aren't immune from some financial difficulties from time to time. What does the championship bring? What does the championship model bring the sport? Well, it brings the variety. It brings that in terms of the number of clubs. So imagine a league of 14 or 15 clubs rather than 8 or 6 or 7 or 8. It's night and day really. Supporters, I think, would crave the variety. It would just freshen up the whole sport, I think. Yes, it brings challenges. We've talked about rider distribution being one of them. The other thing, though, that the championship does bring, I think, and this is maybe the most contentious part. I've been brought up on championship level, or the old National League level of Speedway. I don't see it as substandard, right? Although I'm happy to acknowledge that I don't get to see Jason Doyle and Dan Bewley and Brady Kurtz. I don't get to see them. Would I like to see them regularly? Yeah, of course I would. But if I didn't get to see them, I wouldn't see any British Speedway sides minus the Grand Prix riders as being a poor standard of entertainment. Stuart, what's your? Do you see where I'm going with that? If we were to adopt championship and the big guys decided that wasn't for them, I don't think that necessarily dilutes British Speedway too badly.
No, I mean, you'd only lose a handful of riders, wouldn't you? Because, like Simon was saying earlier, the numbers 1 and 5 are generally just the riders who are not the ones who are doubling down. It certainly wouldn't dilute it. I mean, it would be a big miss to the sport, don't get me wrong, because it's great to have them guys, have the GP guys riding over here. It's what what the fans do like to see, but it certainly wouldn't make the racing any worse. I over a long time have preferred championship racing because the level is a lot more varied, and riders make mistakes in that league on the track. In the Premier, so in the Premier League, the top league, they make fewer mistakes. That's why they are as good as they are, because for that reason they are, and it's so the racing can be a bit more boring really sometimes, because it can be gate and go. Depending on track conditions, of course. I mean, the tracks aren't as deep as they used to be, and they don't have the grip on them, so it can be a bit more difficult to pass. But it certainly wouldn't dilute it without a doubt. Wouldn't dilute the racing. It would just, unfortunately, it would be a loss to lose them guys though, and without a doubt, it would. I think it would affect crowds a little bit, because that's what people do like to see. Which would be a shame if we did lose them, to be fair. But there'd still be good speedway out there.
Look, Lawrence, I'll leave the final word to you. You've seen both levels of the sport in the UK. I know you've mentioned it already. You get to see Jason Doyle every week at Vauxhall, and who wouldn't want to see that, or Emil, for example. But if those top guys decided that the British Speedway wasn't for them because we've adopted the championship operating model, how would you view that, Lawrence? For the greater good of the sport, would you be happy to accept a witch's side without those superstar riders?
Yeah, I think you've got to really, it's it's for the good of the sport. If it means that sport's surviving, and that's the way it has to go. I mean, I don't think a lot of I don't know. Would some of them clubs lose that many fans? Maybe not. Just I don't see really. It may also put more bums on seats in the championship sides, with more variety and seeing different riders that some of those that don't double up, you know, they might get to see them. So I don't think it'd been missed too much. Obviously, you've got that Heat 13 and 15 as obviously the real big race with often 4 GP guys. But I mean, we're down to the sort of level of support that Speedway has now. I mean, we're down, you know, they've been saying it for years, we're down to sort of pretty much the hardcore. And so, no, I think it would remain right the same, really.
Yeah. So yeah, 360 Speedsters, what's your views? You know, there's probably no right and wrong answer. You know, you know, if you were brought up on Premiership or First Division Speedway, you might be loath to lose out on seeing some of the superstars of the sport. If like me, you were brought up on Championship or second tier, you know, it would be a big loss not to get to see those guys because you weren't used to seeing them anyway. But for the sake of the sport, if finance and cost profile is key in some of the considerations, which way do you, or would you want British Speedway to go, assuming of course that we go in the direction of one league or two? Bear with, we're now going to talk about in the Fans Pulse Lap 3 exactly that we're going to discuss 2026 one league or two. If you want to follow on and watch that particular discussion, do nothing. It will auto start in about 10 seconds.